What is up, everybody? Isaac here with Civil Engineering Academy. Excited to be with you on another podcast episode. We have been slowly doing a dive into each PE exam specification that is changing in 2027. So if you're studying to prepare for the PE exam, you should know that the specs are changing in April of 2027. And we've been diving into each one of those. Well, we're currently doing Geotech for today's episode. So if you are taking the Geotech PE exam starting April of 2027, this would be a great episode for you. We are also going to compare that spec with what is currently the spec, which is as of April of 2024. So if you remember, in April of 24, they had the biggest change they ever did. They removed the breadth section, and every exam now just is depth material, basically, specific PE exam. So today we're going to dive into Geotech. We're going to do a complete spec review comparing 2024 spec, which is all the way up till April of 2027, and comparing the new one, which is effective of April 2027. So something to pay attention to if you are preparing for that. So without further ado, I will go ahead and shut up. Let me get to this episode where we're going to dive into this. I'm going to do a lot of screen sharing as we bounce the two specifications, and I think you're going to enjoy this one. So stick with me, and we will see you in a minute. All right, so let's dive into what we've got here. So for those watching this, if you're finding us on YouTube or our website or whatever, I am going to do a screen share on diving into this. If you're just listening to us, I'll do my best to explain every little detail here so you can listen along. So first thing you're going to do, obviously, is you're going to jump to the NCEES website. You're going to go there, go check out exams, PE exam. And if you scroll near the middle, you'll find civil, which is important. That's the one we're talking about. They talk about the exam itself. So we might as well talk about it again as just kind of a recap. But the PE exam is available year round. You can take it once per quarter. So you need to have, obviously, most of the time you're going to be taking the PE is 4 years of post-college work experience. Most people wait the 4 years, but some states do allow you to take it right after the FE. So just be aware of what your own state's requirements are. But in either case, most states require 4 years of post-work experience to get your PE exam. The civil PE is computer-based. It's always been that since 2021 when COVID hit. They accelerated pushing that to CBT. And you have to go take it at a Pearson VUE testing center, which you can schedule here. You got to get your NCEES account going. You can grab the specs for free, but to get the handbook and everything else to register, you got to get your NCEES account. So the exam hasn't changed. It's 80 questions. Your appointment time, if you go, is 9 hours in total. So you got to sign a non-disclosure agreement that's going to be 2 minutes, a tutorial that's going to be 8 minutes. The exam is 8 hours. Your scheduled break, 50 minutes. You can learn more by going to their YouTube channel. Obviously, they're going to show you some cool stuff about the Pearson VUE Testing Center, what you can and can't bring. I highly recommend checking that out. They also have videos on, what the exam looks like, what alternative item type questions look like as well. So you do want to check that out. So it talks about registering for the exam. You got to pay your fee, understand the reference material, right? Understanding how scoring and reporting happens, viewing the most up-to-date pass rates. First-time takers are typically 65 to 70%. And obviously, we've covered this many times before, but if you're a repeat taker, it drops drastically. So your best chance is the first chance. You want to make sure you put your best foot forward there. And that includes spending some money, get a review course, get everything you need taken care of, get this thing done. And obviously we have our own courses. So if you want to check us out, you can check out our courses at civilpereviewcourse.com. We definitely cover everything, and we keep our specs updated as best as we can. So very hard to update stuff and keep things in tune with what NCEES pumps out all the time, always changes, etc. It's very hard to keep up with, but we want to make sure we're taking care of our engineers and making sure it's applicable. So the exam fee is a hefty $400 paid directly to them. It's an expensive exam. It's no joke. Between a course, the exam fee, codes and standards, stuff adds up quickly. All your study prep material, you want to get exams even more so than usually you find in a course. Like, it's a lot. So preparing for this exam is not going to be cheap. If you can find codes and standards from work, that's going to be a blessing in your life. Definitely beg, borrow, those codes and standards. Um, Anyway, you may have to fill out a separate application as part of your approval process, depending on your own state or in licensing board. So you want to make sure you figure that out well in advance. Another one that pops up that confuses a lot of people is if they haven't taken the FE exam yet. Maybe you're international, maybe you graduated from a school that didn't require the FE. Your life would be way easier if you can pass that FE first. And I'm talking about even if you get your PE done, you want to apply in different states. Say you want to get your PE license in different states, comedy, those type of things have hangups in certain states if you don't have your FE done, and you have to start working on waivers and all kinds of stuff. It becomes a little bit of a mess. But in any case, get the FE done. And we have a course for that too, and exams. So check that out, civilFEreviewcourse.com. All right, exam specifications and standards are below that. So, we're going to dive into that. Now, here's a real key note here is that these specs change every 5 to 7 years. So they updated these before 2027. They updated them in 2024. And so you've got a spec here for that. We're going to talk about Geotech today. So we're going to click on that. And then they also have effective beginning April of 2027. Today we're talking about Geotech. If you want to check out other videos, we're saving structural for last. But if you want to check out the other ones, we do have a podcast talking about each one of those as well. They do list underneath here exam resources. So they do talk about exam prep materials. The handbook is free to you. You want to make sure you get a copy of that in your NCEES account. They're not going to sell printed copies of the handbook, so everything's PDF to get you used to using a PDF since everything is searchable PDF files. And then the handbook and design standards on the exam are searchable PDF files with linked chapters for easy navigation. Learn more how to search the handbook and design standards, checking out their YouTube video. Definitely recommend it. One thing that hangs up people is that you can do a Control F typically on the handbook, but if you have codes and standards, you're going to have to drill down to chapter and then you can search it. So you got to at least know where you're navigating to codes and standards. They do have an exam guide, which is helpful. It gives you policies and procedures. You can check that out here. So grab that. And they do have their own exam prep material, including exams, which are always good from, straight from the horse's mouth to grab. Just know they're not going to be questions on the exam, but at least they'll give you a look and feel of the real exam too. They do have reasonable accommodation requests if you do require them. Basically, what that does is split the exam into 2 days. But you have to have medical stuff, make sure all that's buttoned up to get those. And then they talk about scoring and passing. So you could check that out. Typically on practice exams and such, you want to get around 70%. Same goes for the real exam. If you can hover around 70%, you're going to be just fine passing this thing. And you're going to get results in 7 to 10 days. So you can check out the pass rates here, which is always good to do. And highly encourage you to check those out. But don't be discouraged by the pass rates either. Just know it's just part of the process, right? All right, let's fast forward here. We're clicking on each one of these, and it's going to bring these things up. Let me show you. All right, so I've clicked on both links. You're going to see both specifications. On the left-hand side, I've got the specs that were effective as of April of 2024. And on the right are going to be the new ones that are effective April of 2027. So what's interesting to understand in all of this is that the date that they've listed up here for the specs, it does not change between the two. They both say they're effective April of 2024, meaning the actual specification does not change as of April of 2024. What has changed in the 2027 spec for sure is the codes and standards. Now, I wish that was a little more clear when they publish these things, because as a student that is preparing for this, you may be freaking out that all the specs are going to be changing, when really it's just the codes and standards, which is also a good reason to freak out too. But it's just a little confusing when they say the specs are being updated as April 2027, and you click in here. Both these show that the specs are effective April of 2024, so it looks like they screwed up. But the truth is that they have two different dates depending on what they're updating. They're either updating the codes and standards or they're updating the actual specifications. And I wouldn't be too hung up when they do mix the specifications up, because it's like rearranging the rooms in your house. You're still in the same house. Same with engineering. The topics don't change that much. And even if they do, it's just shuffling things around, calling it something else. And they've done that for years. So let's just go through this real quick. On the left and right, they are both the same, like I said for the first part. So let's just walk through it. The first thing they do is they talk about the handbook. This is a closed book exam with electronic references. You're going to have the handbook at your disposal with the design standards shown on the last 2 pages. Examinees have 9 hours to complete the exam, which contains 80 questions. We already ran through that. Really, you have 8 hours to complete the exam. The exam uses both SI units and US units. You want to be aware of that so you're not caught off guard. The exam is developed with questions that require a variety of approaches and methodologies, including design, analysis, and applications. Also, the examples specified in knowledge areas are not exclusive or exhaustive, which covers them to ask anything they want. It doesn't have to stay within the confines of these specifications. They could ask something related to current trends, current magazines, industry standards and practice, that pull something out, and they have to give you, the information to solve it, but they could pull from somewhere else. Okay, so that's the same between the two of them. The first spec listed is site characterization for geotech, and it's listed A through H. That is no change, 8 to 12 questions. The second one is soil mechanics, lab testing, and analysis, 8 to 12 questions, no changes. The third topic, construction, observation, monitoring, and quality assurance, quality control, and safety, 6 to 9 questions, no change. And then they got earthquake, engineering, and dynamic loads, 5 to 8 questions, no change there. Next up, earth structures, ground improvement, and pavement, 9 to 14 questions, no change there. Next, number 6, groundwater and seepage, 4 to 6 questions, no change. 7 is problematic soil and rock conditions. You got 4 to 6 questions there, also no change. And then 8, retaining structures. You're either going to use ASD or LRFD to solve those. And you got 10 to 15 questions in that arena. Number 9, and I'm not reading all the subtopics here. You can go through those yourself. But number 9 is going to be shallow foundations, also using ASD or LRFD, depending on what they ask. 6 to 9 questions. There's no change there. And lastly, number 10 is deep foundations, ASD or LRFD, and you got 10 to 15 questions there. So that covers the spec part. Now, if you dive down a little further, you'll see we are now in the design standards. And in here, there is no change up until we get to the specs. And we'll cover what those are. So they list here, in addition to the handbook, the following codes and standards will be supplied in the exam as searchable electronic PDF files with links for easy navigation. And they show a YouTube video you can click on how those will be presented in the exam. And I highly recommend checking that out. They're going to be individual chapters. Only one chapter at a time can be opened and searched. This ensures the exam software runs large files effectively. The handbook and design standards will be available the entire exam. Solutions to the exam questions that reference a standard of practice are scored based on this list and the revision year shown. Solutions based on other standards will not receive credit. So you do want to upgrade your standards if you're going to take the exam April of 27, because you want to make sure you have the latest, greatest. Now, is there significant changes? Sometimes there are, but most of the time they're not. And so a lot of people get hung up on, do I need the latest code and standard? You obviously do want the latest code and standard. There's just nothing around that. But in terms of like preparing an exam prep and courses and lecture material, like a lot of this stuff is okay to use something older. It's just getting the reps in and knowing where it is in the new material. So let's go through some of the standards here. We've got ASCE 716 in the old one, and in the new one, it's ASCE 7. minimum design loads for buildings and other structures 2022. Okay. The previous one was ASC 716, and we're upgrading now to 2022. We've got the EM 1110-2-1902. Zero changes there. We've got the FHWA NHI 05-37. That's the FHA Geotechnical Aspects of Payment 2006. No change there. FHWA NHI 06-88, which is FHWA Soils Foundations Reference Manual, Volume 1, 2006. Zero change there. Let's go on to the next one, FHWA NHI 06-89. No change there. That's 2008 of the FHWA Soils and Foundations Manual, Volume 2. So nothing going on there. All right, and the next one I'm seeing here is the FHWA NHI 07-92. Did they even have that? Let's see. Looks like that's a new one, folks. So that is the FHWA Geosynthetic Design and Construction Guidelines, August of 2008. So you're going to have to dig up that one somewhere. And then you got the FHWA NHI 11032 GEC number 3. Let's see, that's the same as previous spec. So that's the FHWA LRFD Seismic Analysis and Design of Transportation, Geotechnical Features, and Structural Foundations Reference Manual 2011. That is a mouthful. All right. Next one I'm just comparing here was the NHI 16009 GEC number 12. No change there. 2016. That is for FHWA Design and Construction of Driven Pile Foundations. So you're going to want to grab that. All these FHWA ones you should be able to find on their website for FHWA. Scrolling down, we've got the FHWA NHI 16-10, the GEC number 12. No change there. That's the FHWA Design and Construction of Driven Pile Foundations, Volume 2, 2016. Next up is the FHWA NHI 16-072, GEC number 5. That's the FHWA Geotech Site Characterization as of 2017. No change there. Then we got FHWA NHI 18-24. That's the GEC number 10. That's Drilled Shafts, Construction Procedures, and Design Methods, 2018. No change there. Oh, here we go. Here's the changes. So previously they had NAVFAC DM 7.02. I'm not seeing that anymore. That's been removed. We still have CFR Title 29, but now we've got Part 1926, which is the Safety and Health Regulations for Construction. They dive into Subpart E, M, P, and CC, and that was the same as previous. Now we've got UFC 3-220-05, which is the Unified Facilities Criteria for Dewatering and Groundwater Control, 2004. There's no change there. We have UFC 3-220-10. That's the UFC Soil Mechanics of 2022. That's the same. But now we added UFC 3-220-20, UFC Foundations and Earth Structures 2025. So we added that. So what have we added here? We've added nothing under CFR. We added the UFC. We added one of these FHWA guides, which was the geosynthetic one. So you got a bunch of codes and standards for geotech. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 with the subparts there. So 15. What did we used to have? 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we added one in total. We got one extra on the new spec. And we just keep adding more to it. So from previous exams, water resources, for example, had 0 and went to 2. Next year they go up to 7. And Geotech also had very few back when I took it, and then it exploded, and now we've got 15 codes and standards now, which isn't a bad thing when it's tied to industry standards, and I think it's all good stuff. But you're gonna have to find all these, like I said, and use them. The key to using this stuff is to use it while you're solving problems. Anytime you're solving stuff, definitely have these things open, be familiar with the chapters, look at it frequently, and you're going to be ahead of the game. So that basically is it. So no other changes besides the codes and standards at the end. If you have any questions about it, I'm curious what your take is on the new spec. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you care? You don't care? But if you need help on the journey to pass, like I said, come visit us. You can find our material for exams at civilengineeringacademy.com. And if you need a full-blown course, check us out at civilpereviewcourse.com. You can also find us on the main website as well. But we'll keep things up to date, following the codes and specs, and won't leave you hanging on stuff. But we'd love to help you on your journey to become a professional engineer. But I'm curious what your take is on these spec changes and these little updates that they have all the time. But hopefully that was helpful. That was a deep dive into Geotech today. We'll go ahead and do one more after this. But like I said, if you need help with anything else on FE or PE related stuff, shoot me an email. Come check us out. We're here to help you on this journey to pass, but excited to do that. And thanks for hanging out with me. So without further ado, I will shut up and let you get back to your day. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next one. Bye.